that rule out any other kind of tax cut or anything like that in terms of the campaign?
I think in terms of we'll make some comments about the conditions for the election campaign because we want to let people know exactly what we'll do over the next 3 years with the necessary provisos. So we'll be clear about that. But yes, in terms of making further adjustments prior to 2020, as you can see from these numbers, there's actually quite limited room. And that actually applies to all parties, whatever they want to do. They've got a situation where either they'd have to raise further taxes revenues if they wanted to do more expenditure, or increase debt, which is, they're all valid options politically. But in terms of having the room to do something significant prior to 2020, those 2 years prior to that are just a bit softer than they were previously.
So no tax cut promises on the campaign trail, nothing until 2020?
No, I didn't say that, Paddy. I'd say we would lay out our firm view on the campaign trail, possibly earlier than you expect. Really what I'm saying to you today is that 2020 is the earliest that we'll do something on personal.
Well, we could have a tax package that is potentially fiscally neutral. Is that what you're trying to say? That you might promise tax changes?
No, well you could, but no, we're not planning that. We're talking about when we do a second family incomes package based on the ability within the books that we've got. And no, we're not proposing to raise taxes to cut them somewhere else.
So what you're saying is that on the campaign trail, we will hear about your 2020 families income package?
And on what circumstances it would take place.
Okay.
And what sort of money is available what sort of cash do you think, you sort of said there was a 200 or 300 million that you could play with each year? I mean, what are your parameters you're trying to
I'm just saying, not so much us, I'm just saying that's for anybody. I mean, that's all that's there in terms of additional expenditure based on that year that's just finished. I think about around the $300 or $400 million mark.
So Labor could spend an extra 300 or 400 million a year in your view?
But they could have been.
Well, that's, or they can put it against debt. I mean, effectively Treasury's placed it against debt at this point. But if they said to us, oh, well, actually, we want to spend a bit more money, and then you could keep to the budget debt track if you wanted, and spend about 300 or 400 million a year more.
And is that budget debt track set on your new forecast of the 10 to 15% or 15% range?
They're both, actually. I mean, we're talking at fairly marginal shifts, Byron,
but that's important, isn't it? Because Labor has signalled they would run slightly higher debt, so they may have more than 400 million to play with each year.
And they'll effectively have to borrow more money to do that, because actually we don't pay down debt nominally for a couple of years yet significantly, so they'd have to borrow actually more debt. So yeah, they could push it out to sort of 2023, which is what they've been talking about doing. And if you look at that, as I said, when they put their package, they put their fiscal plan out, that would involve effectively borrowing around $7 billion more over the intervening period.
So is it fair to say your overall sort of fiscal policy, the binding constraint is the net debt to GDP target? And I wonder what you think the virtue in that is when the level is already so low and you can borrow so cheaply. Why give primacy to that?
Because Brian, the experience that we've had as a country in recent times is actually we have both external and internal volatility brought about by unusual events that some sadly aren't as unusual as we'd like them to be. We had firstly the GFC, which created a need to have fiscal headroom or debt headroom, and secondly, of course, Canterbury earthquakes. And in effect, that meant that during that period we lifted net debt from about 6% of GDP up to 26% of GDP. So, as we discussed earlier this year, our view is that we should be creating not quite as much headroom as previously, but certainly sufficient headroom that if necessary we could do that again. And that's about making the New Zealand economy more resilient.
26% is remarkably low by rich country standards.
Well, yes, but we're a small. Yes, but we're a small country. We also have relatively high private debt levels, although they're coming down, and so the government can't ignore the overall external debt position. We're down now at about 58% of GDP, which is a long way down from where we were 9 years ago, and that's created some positives for us in terms of some of the margin spreads between us and the US and Australia and so on. But nevertheless, talk to the ratings agencies, they still see that as a weak point for New Zealand. So I doubt that they'd be thrilled at the idea of the government during good economic times going out and borrowing some more money and leaving the private sector where it is at the moment. So that's where I am.
So does that mean that on the campaign trail we'll be hearing about incentives for the private sector to reduce its debt to GDP? I mean, most of that's tied up in the mortgage market. Will there be incentives, like if government's doing its part, will you be incentivising the private sector to try and reduce its debt? Because that's the main risk.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd argue we've been doing that, because over the last 6 or 7 years, it's reduced from 82.5% down to 58.5%. And you say to yourself, well, how's that occurred? And I would say through the confidence in the New Zealand economy, through the growth in the New Zealand economy, we've seen a gradual paying down of external debt. So I'd say give us another 6 years. Well, you know, we'd have to ask for 3 at a time, obviously. Give us another 6 years and we'll see it come down further. I'm quite bullish on that.
How much room do you think you've got to meet potential demands from coalition partners or support partners during the formation of government process?
Well, effectively, you've got that fiscal headroom there as we stand today, which is $1.7 billion a year in additional operating budget, and we're making some commitments that come from within that through this campaign period. For example, the commitment to reduce cost of GPs for lower income people that was announced on Monday, that will come out of that allowance package. And similarly, others may have things that they're seeking, just as has happened to us right through the period of government to date, where parties have views about what they do, and we have to wrap it into the overall operating budget that the Crown has. And of course, this money is all unallocated at this point, beyond the promises being made, not just by ourselves, but other people.
So is that your upper limit to any potential coalition partner?
That's the upper limit that I believe is sensible for the New Zealand economy.
So can I just follow up on Alex's previous question about the campaign promises around the family tax package? You said the earliest you could do something is 2020.
Yep.
So you're going to be on the campaign trail asking Kiwis, asking people to give you 6 more years so you can do more on personal tax.
No, I'm not going to say that. We're going to say 3 more years, because that's the way we do it in this country. I'm going to say that on the income side, re-electing a national government will firstly make sure that the family incomes package will happen on the 1st of April. A lot of people are acting like it has, and actually it hasn't. And many people will be looking forward to that average $26 a week for working families by 1 April 1. And then if the economy continues to grow like this, we'll have the opportunity to do that again, or something similar, in a couple of years' time.
The last year again.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is you don't have much room in between now and then.
So in terms of the
similar one that you announced in the May budget in terms of working families, accommodation allowance and tax cuts, would it be more specific?
I couldn't design it here for you today, Jane. You designed it at the time, but we're going to put out 2 or 3 sort of principles of what we do, and actually, yes, it would be quite similar. We'd want to focus on lower middle income earners, and we'd want to focus on simplifying the tax system. I'm still concerned, I've made these comments previously, that unfortunately the New Zealand system, particularly for lower and middle income earners, tends to completely muddy the water in terms of rewards for work as against other things, and I'd like to shift that balance back to the rewards for work a bit further.
So you talked about thresholds before on those middle incomes that weren't addressed in the budget, so that could be an area that you can look at in terms of raising those middle thresholds.
That's one option, but I don't plan to write the package before the election. It would be a case of saying, here's the sort of parameters, and making those parameters clear.
So you're talking about working for families abatement rates?
I'm talking about a range of things there, and again, I'm not going to try and write it today. Thanks, Alex.
So